Thank you all for agreeing to be here tonight to help me with my IT project. So I've already filled you in on the background of the IT project. So what I'd like to do now is get information from each of you about the details of your preferences for my IT project. So on this board here, on the left-hand side, I have 3 cards that represent information about how a patient is moving while they're in the hospital. The first card, current mobility, represents information about their current status, how they're moving currently, how much help they need, what type of equipment they need to be safe. Mobility goals, that represents information about the goals that have been established for that patient during their hospitalization in order to improve their current mobility function. And then the last card, mobility activity, represents information that would tell you what functional activities the patient has been participating in while they've been in the hospital. That would include getting up to the bedside chair, walking in the hallway, even sitting at your bed. Okay. On the right-hand side of the board, I have 5 cards that represent how each of you might access and view that mobility information. So the top 2 represent accessing it through the electronic medical record, either on a desktop workstation or on some type of mobile device. The next card, the bedboard monitors, represents or indicates that you would view that information on the bedboards, which are located in the nursing stations all throughout the hospital. The interactive patient bedboard indicates that you would be viewing that information in the patient room, and there would be the potential to have interaction with the goals and the activity that are listed on the board. And then the last one is viewing it through our hospital patient portal. All right, so let's start with you, Brad. I understand that your 92-year-old mother was recently in the hospital. So when you look at the information cards, are there any of these information or any of this information that you would view as not important to you as a family member?
All of those are important to me as a family member. I want to see how my mother is doing and what her goals are and what she's doing currently. So all of them would be important.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then in terms of how you would access and view that information, are there any of these that you would anticipate as not using?
I wouldn't use the electronic medical records options or the bedboard monitors at the nurse station. I would be in her room or at home, so the interactive patient board would be important to me, as well as the patient portal, so I could see how she was doing if I was not in the hospital.
Okay, all right, thank you. So this then represents your user preferences and needs in terms of the information you want and how you would view it.
It does.
Okay, thank you. All right. How about let's go with you, Karen. You work as an RN on one of our med-surg units. So as a nurse, when you look at the information cards, are there any of those that you would view as not important to your work as a nurse?
All of those are important from a nursing perspective.
Okay. All right. And then when you look at the how you would access that information and view it, are there any of these that you wouldn't anticipate using in your work at the hospital as a nurse?
I'm in the nurse's station in the patient's room, and so all of those except for the patient portal would be useful for me.
All right. Okay. So then this represents Karen's preferences as a nurse, the information that she would want, and how she would anticipate accessing and viewing that information.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. All All right. Last one, Will, you work as a patient transporter in the hospital, taking patients to and from their room to various locations in the hospital for tests and procedures. So when you look at the information cards, in your role, are there any of those that you don't view as important?
The mobility goals and mobility activity aren't really relevant to my job. I just need to know what they can do right now.
Okay. All right. And then in terms of accessing and viewing, any of these that you wouldn't anticipate using?
I wouldn't use the patient portal, and I would need the information before I got to the patient's room, so I wouldn't use the interactive patient board either.
All right. All right. So then this represents the information and the viewing options that are important to Will as a patient transporter.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you again for helping me with my IT project.